Welcome guests, students, faculty, and alumni. Thank you for joining us tonight for what should be a wonderful evening. Before we begin this program, I would like to thank Alan Brooks, Westminster class of, he's going to kill me, 1955, for organizing this event. A lot of work went into this event, and it would not have been possible without Mr. Brooks' tireless effort. Mr. Brooks, thank you for not just your vision for this night, but also your relentless pursuit to bring it to fruition. My name is Tim Jonkus, Westminster class of 2000. I've been a faculty member here on the Hill for the last 9 years. I have served the school in a variety of capacities, most recently assuming my current post as the Director of Athletics this past fall. As many of you know, we are in the middle of celebrating our school's 125th anniversary and our unwavering commitment to leading with grit and grace. As you will see shortly, our panelists have done just this. They have led with grit and grace, both as students here on Williams Hill, at their respective colleges and universities, and in their careers. They are loyal, kind, caring, involved, balanced, and responsible members of their communities. They all found greatness in different athletic arenas, but what binds them all together is that their greatness always came from their goodness. Something that we all learned here at Westminster School. I am both honored and humbled to share the stage with these wonderful people. Before they join us, I think it is important to share with you all how I ended up here. As much as you choose a school, the school also chooses you. These words reverberated through my 17-year-old brain as I looked at boarding schools in 1997 and eventually found myself here at Westminster as a new fourth form boy in the fall of '97. I can vividly remember sitting in these seats on my first day at Westminster in this very building, listening to then headmaster Graham Cole speak to us about our school's motto of grit and grace, as well as our core values of involvement, character, community, and balance. Through my classroom, athletic, and community experiences, I soon learned that grit and grace was more than a catchy motto. It was a code of ethics, a way to live your life that focuses on the health and well-being of the community rather than just the individual, but in turn, fully enriches, satisfies, and fulfills the individual. This was the greatest lesson I learned here. I learned how to live a life of meaning, a life of kindness, a life of giving, and the importance of being a responsible citizen. After graduating from Westminster, I went on to Wesleyan and then to Trinity College. I had a brief internship at ESPN before I ultimately accepted a position back here at Westminster in 2004. I came back because I wanted to do for students what so many of my teachers and coaches had done for me. I came back because I believed in the importance of living a life of grit and grace, of leading with grit and grace, and I wanted to have the opportunity every day to make an impact in the lives of Westminster students. Grit and grace define and distinguish Westminster School. They represent a tradition, a culture, an attitude, an aspiration, a way of life for our students and faculty, a distinct advantage for our graduates. Grit characterizes the effort students make to meet our high expectations for academic work, athletics, and community involvement. Grace speaks to the way they negotiate these responsibilities with generosity of spirit, sportsmanship, good manners, and respect. The unique and powerful combination of grit and grace is what makes Westminster people successful, not only here, but also later in life. And in no other venue does it come to life more than in athletics. You practice, you compete, you win, you lose, you care, all with grit and grace. And it's in that spirit, with that balance of toughness and civility, that each of our students, artists, athletes, activists, academicians, leave the Westminster campus to go on to do great things in college and beyond, always using grit and grace as their beacon. Tonight, we are so very fortunate to have with us 6 professional athletes who, during their days and nights on Williams Hill, led with grit and grace, and from here went out and made it big in their sport. We have award winners, All-Americans, MVPs, captains, and Hall of Famers. Your program provides the details, which I hope you have a chance to read, so I won't delay and simply introduce tonight's guests. In the class of 1993, our eldest statesman for the night, former professional lacrosse player, Doug Knight. Class of 1996, former professional basketball and soccer player, Rebecca Brooks. Class of 2001, former professional baseball player, Jeff Natale. Class of 2006, current professional football player, Brian Sanford. In the class of 1996, former professional soccer player, Dr. Kara Brown. In the class of 2008, current professional hockey player in the midst of a playoff run, which explains the beard, Tommy Cross. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. And now, introducing someone of such stature, someone I look up to figuratively and literally, with significant accomplishments and celebrity status, it's too difficult to cover her lengthy and impressive background. You know her well, unless of course you weren't alive in the mid-90s, you didn't have a TV, or you never read a newspaper or watched the news, but to me, Rebecca Lobo is and represents all that is good in the realm of professional sports. From her days as a star at UConn, in the Olympics, and in the WNBA, she has always been a shining example of grit and grace, both on the team she has played for, as a reporter for ESPN, as an author, as a wife, as a mother, and as a member of her community. She balances a lot, does so much in her career for her community and family. She's on air a lot, she travels all over, writes, makes appearances, and I often see her from a distance at Stop and Shop up in Granby. She's a role model to athletes and fans of all ages. At the same time, she's a girl next door, living in Granby with her husband Steve Russian, raising their 4 children. In fact, tonight, she had to choose, as we parents often do, between our kids and everything else. 2 of her daughters are in the elementary school concert tonight at St. Mary's. Fortunately for us, Dad's got the video camera over at St. Mary's and she chose us. It is a privilege to have her at Westminster. Please welcome tonight's moderator, Rebecca Lobo.
Thank you, Tim. I didn't know I would need some help translating. You started here as a 4th form. For people who didn't go here, we have no idea what that means. Unfortunately, Tommy told me that sophomore.
Yes.
For those of us from the public school system. And as far as my kids know, I didn't choose to be here. I had to be here. I asked to work. I'm sorry, I'm missing their production. And if you hopefully saw me at Stop and Shop on a good day, because if my children are with me, oftentimes I get the home run and I have all 4 of them crying before I've checked out. Anyone who's a parent of young children understands how much fun that can be. So we're going to start quickly with a question that I am eager to hear from each one of you. We know what sports you are good at. I want to know what sport, if somebody made you play it and they watched you, what would be the most embarrassing sport for you to play because you just had it? We'll start right here.
Golf. My favorite sport too.
What's your handicap?
Probably a 20.
Oh, that's better than me.
This is tough. I guess I would have to say hockey. I'm 6'1", and so with skates it'd be like 6'4", 6'5", and I would just fall probably constantly.
I'm the same as you, golf, but I think I would shoot probably closer to 200. So I'm going to handicap, that works out.
For me, it'd be basketball. I mean, I come from a family of basketball players, but I was by far the worst.
And I'd probably say ballet or dancing. I mean, on the soccer field, I could dance, but in terms of other dancing, it would be pretty awful.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely tennis. I know a lot of people in the audience have seen me down at the tennis courts getting beat by my little sister, so.
Remind you, tonight's theme, of course, is 21st century athletes. Does character count? And we heard again Tim talk about leading with grit and grace. And so we'll delve right into the question of character. do sports build character or do sports reveal character? And I'll have Kara start with that one.
Okay. I would probably say both. You know, across my development, there are times where, you know, I had to deal with adversity, not making a team, but there are other times where, you know, I experienced some awesome moments in the upper levels, and, you know, it just, I'd probably say that the adrenaline was kind of this natural high, and you know, it probably informed me going on to graduate work and the pursuit of excellence. So I had that platform in sports, and I kind of carried that on. So I would say both.
Brian, when was the last time you didn't make a team?
Oh man, actually it was hair. It was basketball. I was a wrestler for 3 years, All-State, back at Hartford Public before I attended here, and I remember I couldn't wrestle. I couldn't decide what to do. I actually tried the swim team diving. I learned about 5 dives and I couldn't do anymore. Basketball, I just really sucked, so I just kind of became a cheerleader and looked at every game after that.
What was your reaction when you found out? I mean, how did they tell you? Did they
I mean,
post the list? Did they tell you? Or?
I knew I sucked, but I just thought I had enough work ethic to make it, but apparently not.
What qualities do you develop through sports, the most important ones?
Probably for me, I'm not sure at what point I'm going to develop these, but selflessness, just being part of a team is sort of my greatest sort of memories of playing sports and then back.
I guess resiliency, I would say. Just sort of touching on what Kara mentioned a minute ago, sort of having to face and deal with failure. And I was fortunate, I guess, not to have to do that for a while. And college, actually, in terms of athletics, ended up being not, you know, it wasn't the easiest experience, at least not first off. And it was hard for me to handle, but having gone, I guess, through that then really prepares you to deal with that later.
Especially as a mom with young kids, this is something I'm interested to know, because my second daughter is a horrible loser. If she loses at a board game, she cries and storms away. She would rather cheat or have it set up, anything that she could win. Were you, when you were a kid, good loser, bad loser, and how did you learn how to lose?
I think, you know, I was definitely a bad loser. I think there's a difference between having good sportsmanship but also being disappointed when you lose. I think that's just part of being competitive. My friends probably definitely got mad at me. I think about pool basketball in the backyard, just being competitive and hating to lose. And I was once asked the question, do you love to win or do you hate to lose? And to that question, my answer was I love to win. And I was told the correct answer is to hate to lose. But you know, I'm not so sure. I think the thrill of victory is something that can drive you, but also you know, the disappointment of defeat and learning how to deal with that's important as well.
I'd like to introduce her to my second son. He's 7.
She's 6.
I think you want that in a child, though. You know, you have to obviously parent it properly, but you want that sort of drive and competitive spirit.
Yeah, when people ask me about my kids if they'll play sports, I'll say I think she has the chance to be the best athlete because she's the one who hates to lose the most. And it's interesting, when I was in college, Coach Orama asked me that question. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose? And he said he would prefer love to win. So that's why I want it to be love to win. So they do a lot of winning there. So so maybe that's why. What role, and this is again a question I'm interested in, I coach my daughter's basketball team over at St. Mary's School, which is interesting, a bunch of Catholic school third graders teaching them to play basketball. But what role, and Rebecca, I'll start with you, what role do coaches play in the development of character, whether it's youth or all the way through?
I think they play a huge role. And I think back, I was so fortunate, I think back to all the sports I played when I was young. And I just did Simsbury, travel, soccer, basketball. I didn't do a ton of the premier and attended that traveling, and almost all, I think all of my coaches really that I think of were parents of friends of mine, of kids on the team, and I have so much more admiration and respect for them now to know that they were just doing that, you know, voluntarily and picking me up at the house and driving me. But I think that is those years just growing up and all the way through high school, and I can think of all my coaches here, that's just, I think, the most influential point in your life, and whether you really realize it or not, you're looking up to your coaches as role models, and what they model for you is really, I think, subconsciously how you start to shape yourself. And just, again, talking about handling defeat well, learning, being a good winner can be hard, you know, as well, I think, and to learn that, I think that the sports definitely, through coaching, helps build character, certainly.
Jeff, how does that change as you go from one level to the next level to the next level?
Well, I think, you know, I still can remember back to all my Little League coaches, all my youth hockey coaches growing up, and I mean, I really don't know how much it changes going up from level to level. I still had, you know, guys that, you know, that put a great deal of effort into my career, and I don't think I really appreciated it at the time, but looking back, you know, and now being a coach myself, like you really see how, you know, we're sort of laying it out there for the kids, and you know, we don't have an ego in anything that we do, but looking back as a player, I was always like, oh, Mr. Earl, he's sitting me because, you know, one reason or another, and now I can say Mr. Jonkis, but, you know, and I always thought that it was something that maybe, you know, it wasn't ever my fault, and I think looking back on it now, I see how great of an experience and how much they shaped me as an athlete and as a person, and you really appreciate it sort of sitting here instead of, you know, being where some of the kids might be right now.
Brian, I'll go on to you because football is a completely different beast, it seems. You know, how does coaching change, and especially in football where they're so, you know, raw?
Coaching for me, I come from low-income background. I didn't have a father as I was growing up. It was just me and my little brother. And I think the biggest thing that coaching put me was a father figure, someone to teach me the things that my father never taught me, like accountability and discipline. And as I started to learn that, I started to realize that it's not just me. I mean, most of the time, most people who play sports, they think it's individual. Like the better your outcome, the better your team. No, it's the more you work with your team for the outcome. And as I went to college, as every other teen boy just graduated high school, you think you know everything. And I mean, I think when I got to college, coaches did the same thing that my high school coaches kind of sat me down, told me this is not you, this is the team. And this is even bigger now because you got education at stake and you got other people's lives at stake. You know what I mean? And now in the NFL, they expect you to be a man, so pretty much handle yourself so you get cut.
It always cracks me up if I'm going to a local field for whatever sport, and I think sometimes youth coaches learn to coach by watching TV and NFL. So you'll see all these peewee guys in their helmets, and then you know, the coach, be tough, be a man, be 6. So then the question becomes, you know, we all saw on TV the Mike Rice situation, the Rutgers basketball coach. The question I had when I was watching the video, you know, he's yelling at the kids, cursing at them, which is not uncommon, but some of the slurs he was using, and then throwing the basketballs at them. My question was, how come none of the kids and none of the assistant coaches said anything? It's over 2 years. How do you get into a culture of, and sports is a different culture. How does that happen in sports where people, some of them have to have good character to let that happen? Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking about what you were saying, and oftentimes, you know, your sports team can be very insular, so you get used to a certain culture. And, you know, I'm wondering if nothing was said and the culture was built up because the level of competition was so high. It makes me think back to my experience at Notre Dame, and I often was very competitive and worried that I might lose my starting position. So a lot of times I would be working and working and working. And I think sometimes in a sports and a team culture, those things sometimes can happen. And when that happens, you need to kind of bond together as a group and, you know, talk to the staff, talk to the coaches, try to intervene for each other.
Has anyone here ever had an experience where a coach went crossed any kind of line?
Mr. Ack. I was actually thinking of how awesome the coaches were here and how much they certainly built my character. I think sort of the higher levels you go, I think the character is a little bit less of an issue for a coach. I'm not sure how good that is, how good thing that is, but certainly, you know, through youth sports and here, talking about grit and grace, all the coaches and teachers I had were, you know, phenomenal examples of that.
And you talked a little bit about, you know, there's a different culture in sports. Tommy, do you think people who don't play sports can understand the sports culture in the locker room or a kind of a team bond that players have?
You know, I think that's tough to say because my initial response to that is, you know, can someone who's not part of a band understand the, you know, the camaraderie of the band, or you know, other groups that get together and need teamwork and discipline amongst themselves. But from my experience, I think you know, the locker room's a sacred place, and what goes on in there is tough to understand for outsiders that aren't a part of it. I think having gone through it yourself gives you a good perspective, but even still, it's being in there and hearing what's said and what goes on that really gives you the insight about what it's like.
Aggressiveness in sports. For a lot of sports, you have to be really aggressive. Some sports are trying to control it a little bit more. Football, because of concussions. Hockey, the recent 2-game suspension for the hit. Which I don't know enough about hockey to know if it was legal or not legal, but the guy's face was messed up, so that's not good. I'll start with Brian. Is it tough to turn the aggressiveness off when the game's done or when the practice is done? Do you have to be two different people?
I mean, speaking as a defensive player, you have to be aggressive all the time. And just a lot of the new things. I mean, I got upset a couple times with some of the new things about the quarterback who can't hit his helmet and stuff like that. I think it's hard to turn aggression on and off, especially in football. You got to do it for 60 minutes, 2 hours straight. And I build up so much before a game that I kind of get into the tunnel mode. And sometimes it's hard to stop what you're doing. And a lot of people start thinking when you try to control your aggression, you kind of think too much. You don't want to do the same move, or you don't want to do the same technique. But I think that if you practice it with everything, practice makes perfect, and you kind of learn to control yourself. I think I've kind of learned to control myself, because I remember I was so aggressive coming out of college. I never stopped running. Even when I'm falling, my feet were still moving. And in practice, especially professional, you can't do that, because you can fall and hurt someone. It's a really big thing. Like, you fall in practice, coaches will kick you out of practice. So you gotta learn to control it, and it's really, really hard coming from defense, because I'm really aggressive. But I mean, things you just deal with it.
But what about separating football field and life? Because a lot, especially football players, a lot of guys who get in trouble, whether it's domestic issues or whatever. How do you be what you need to be on the field and then be something else when you're not on the field?
I don't know. I think I used to mess up in my younger years, but I had coaches that were really, really, really on me. And like, you couldn't do anything. We had curfew, class checks, like anything. Like, wherever you go, there was a coach. So like, you learn to control it without even thinking about it. Because even now, I mean, it'd be about 10 o'clock and I get a call from a guy, oh, you want to do this, or the bar open? I'm like, no, I'm not tired, but I'm going to tell him I'm tired. Just because I had curfew for 3 years straight in college, and that's the time we came in. And I think a lot of guys really do have trouble with aggression, man. A lot of guys can't turn it off. But I think just as a human being, that's just something you have to learn to do. You have to learn to be disciplined. You have to show people that, yes, you are a beast, but you're also human too.
That could be the new motto. Yes, you are a beast, but you have to be human too. Tommy, same question in terms of on the ice and off.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously you have to turn off the physical aggression. You have to find a way to separate, you know, what you're allowed to do on the ice or on the field, or on the court, that's reserved for that space, and then after that, it has to get turned off. But I think the mental aggressiveness and the mental approach and the energy and the focus and the hard work, I think those can be carried over into other parts of your life. And on a similar note, I think, and I've learned it from older guys on my team this year, it's been a great experience playing with older guys with families, and they have different priorities when they leave the rink. They have to turn off whatever's going on at the rink when they go home to see their kids and see their families, because if they're not in the lineup or they're facing some adversity or injury, they can't go home and bring that negative energy home, just as you can't bring the physical presence.
This is on a different topic, but still kind of the team and the sport mentality. And Doug, I'll start with you. Recently, huge headlines, Jason Collins coming out as the first active athlete to say he was gay. Why was that such a big deal, do you think? And we'll just start there. Why do you think that was such a big deal?
It's a big deal, probably 'cause it was the first time it happened. As someone actually coming out, I don't think it should be a big deal. Good for him, and hopefully that's a huge step in the right direction for the country and the world. People are people. It doesn't matter what your preferences are.
Do you feel like that's the attitude in the clubhouse or in a locker room? That are you surprised that it took this long for an athlete to come out, or do you understand why they would be fearful of doing so?
I mean, I guess I sort of see it both ways. I think in a long season, when you're around the same group of 30 guys all the time, you don't want to be seen as outwardly different, where you could put yourself in an uncomfortable position. So I see why people would be timid about doing it. Put me in a clubhouse with someone who's gay, and I don't think that I change anything that I do or anything, how I go about my business. And I don't think most guys would. But obviously we live in a day and age where people would. And I think that's too bad. But I think it's about time someone did. And I think it's a really good step in the right direction.
Rebecca, I'll go to you. The week before Jason came out, WNBA draft, Brittany Griner's the #1 pick. She goes to the Phoenix Mercury, and she says that she's gay. And whatever. Why do you think it's treated, that issue is treated differently with female athletes than with male athletes?
Just having played sports, it's just, on all my teams, it's more common. And, I wish I could have some better statement, but it's been something that's been familiar for me for, a large part of my life. And I think it's what's valued in sports. A lot of questions have been geared towards that. Aggressiveness and a lot of traits that you would characterize as being, masculine more so than feminine. And so, in a men's locker room, I can imagine, it's not so accepted, and it doesn't make it right or make it wrong, but I wouldn't even think twice about that.
If I could just add on to you, Red, I think the culture of masculinity is just so prevalent across so many men's sports. That's why I would imagine that it might have taken this long for an athlete to be confident about coming out. I think it's been prevalent for so many years. So just going off of what you were saying.
That dovetails perfectly into the next topic, which is women in sports. And often in sports that are played by both women and men, there's going to be a comparison between the two. So the next question is, are women changing sports, or are sports changing women? We'll start with the women.
I feel like that's a hard one. I guess in my experience, I never thought that sport was necessarily changing me as a young woman. But I think as I, excelled, I guess, I think, so in sport, you're at least in women's sport, oftentimes when you're athletic, you're competitive, you're tough, you're feisty, those can be labeled as more masculine traits than feminine traits. So for me personally, I think oftentimes I was juggling some of my femininity and some of those more masculine traits that I was getting valued for. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I have to believe that if I hadn't played sports, I just personally believe that I would be different. I don't know how different, and I'm not saying for better or for worse, but I think playing sports definitely shaped me. Or women shaping sports. I know, it's hard to, I wish I could answer that better, but I think sports are, I think maybe there's more acceptance, I don't know, more acceptance of women being a little bit considered, you know, at some point talking about being feminine and you're valued for your femininity, but you play sports and you think about that less, and you put less value in that, and you put value in places where they should be, and sports were a huge part of allowing me to have that confidence. So.
Anybody have daughters up here? You had mentioned a son. 3 boys.
No.
No daughters, no kids. Well, then I can't ask if your attitude about sports has changed since having daughters. How many of you watch women's college or professional sports, the men?
I come downstairs and my son's watching. He loves women's softball. I'll watch games with him. We're watching the World Series now.
I do not know.
Yeah, I watch less sports now, but really when you were playing, that's what we all know.
You're a little boy. Watch women's sports? Son. Why would people, if they're not watching women's sports, why not? Like some people say they pass by, you know, women's basketball isn't as exciting as men's basketball. If I want to watch high-level basketball, I'm going to watch the guys because they can dunk and so forth. Why would you not watch women's sports?
I don't think it's a difference between men and women. I just really love baseball, and I really love watching hockey, and I really love watching football. And those are, you know, softball is the same in principle as baseball, but it honestly is a different sport. And I just love all the little nuances of baseball. And I don't know them about softball, so I don't understand the rules, so I won't watch. Obviously, there's, you know, women's ice hockey, but it's not at a professional level. And then football, you know, I think, you know, the reason why I love football is because of that aggressiveness and because of that. And obviously there's no women's football. So those are really the only 3 sports that I watch consistently, and they just don't happen to have women involved in them.
And you watch the best there was, so you don't bother to watch anything. Tommy?
In college, I always went to the women's lacrosse and soccer and basketball games. And that was, I love going, I guess more, you know, supporting your fellow student athletes. And, you know, everyone goes to football games and, you know, all the biggest sporting events. And I think it was good to go to all the sporting events.
In my experience, the people who supported the female athletes the most were the male athletes. Because they saw you every day in the gym, they saw you in the weight room, they saw you on the track, and they understood better than anybody else how hard you were working. So even though the sport was different, it might not be as fast, the athletes might not be as big and strong, they at least understood the commitment it took to get there. And so we at least always appreciated that. I don't know if that was your experience too.
Yeah, I would say my dad. I mean, my dad was my #1 fan. I mean, you know, not that my mom didn't like watching me play, but, you know, he encouraged me. Even when I, you know, I'd sometimes say, oh, I had an awful game, and he would say, you know, KB, you were the best out there more than anybody's, you know, awful game. Or, you know, just so, he was really my biggest fan. And I have a lot of good memories of, you know, there were a lot of big games, and I would scan the crowd and looking for him, and I never really could find him, but I'd hear his whistle. And I knew that I could just ground myself and then play. So I would say fathers are key in girls' development. Well, both mothers and fathers. But.
How important were your parents, mom, dad, or whoever, in what you were able to do?
Huge influences. Funny Karen says that. My dad's whistle was the same. I couldn't find him. It was a big crowd. I hear his whistle and know he was there. And I know my mom was probably at the other end of the stadium for incredibly supportive. Yeah.
Mine weren't that involved. Yes, I think everyone here knows. But my mom was equally supportive. I mean, you appreciate it so much more. I'm not a parent, but I'm a coach. But the driving, the sometimes having to watch a 2-hour high school basketball practice, and you're like, oh gosh. And I can imagine only watching, co-ed first grade soccer teams for 2 hours and how painfully boring that must be. But that they drove me everywhere, went to everything, barely missed my college games. So.
Yeah, I think my parents went, or at least my dad went to every single sporting event that I was in throughout, all youth sports, all high school sports, and all college sports. My dad went so far as to my senior year in high school, he ran out of sick days because he was close to retirement, but he still wanted to come down to Florida to watch us play in Florida. So he called in and just said he couldn't come in, and he was just lathered in sunscreen so that no one would know he's actually in Florida, and so that he would be able to come to all my games. So my dad might have, taken it to the next extreme, but obviously always very supportive.
You mentioned coaches being especially influential in your life.
Yeah, I started sports kind of late. I started my sophomore year, and I remember telling my mom I started wrestling first. I'm like, Mom, I'm a wrestler, I want you to come, and she didn't believe me. She actually made it, my little brother, and I got annihilated. It was like the second or third match, and she told me, she's like, you're not that good, son. I told her, my coach always told me, practice makes perfect, and my main goal was to impress my mother. So from that day on, I worked, and every match she came to, every game, we practically won after that because I was so encouraged to impress my mother. Because I seen other guys growing up, Pop Warner and their parents at the games, and I never really had that until high school. So they were. Yeah.
So now that you walk around the grocery store, whatever, in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, Browns everywhere. My house is practically orange now.
And I'll move on. When I was a kid, if you started something and made a commitment, signed up, we could not quit until the last game. And the only thing I ever wanted to quit was tap dancing. His body was not made to tap dance. And my mom said, you can quit after the recital. Now kids are doing so many activities that it's hard to be able to be involved in everything. What was your experience in terms of being involved in the commitment you had to make going all through juniors?
Yeah, my parents told me quitting wasn't an option, and I don't even think I got a reason, and I don't think I understood it, but if you started the season, you had to finish it, and if you were on one team during the season, you didn't have another team you were a part of during that season. You waited until hockey was over to start baseball. You waited until baseball was over to do fall hockey or whatever the situation was. And it was pretty easy for me because I kept it pretty simple growing up. I played baseball and hockey and soccer, and I didn't do any select teams or juniors or teams that run all season for any of the sports. So I was blocked off where hockey was in the winter and soccer was in the fall and baseball was in the spring. But the biggest thing was quitting. It just wasn't allowed. It wasn't an option. I guess I still don't have a reason for it, but I still don't.
Did you play? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, can I speak to that commitment
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit? I was the same way, obviously, and sort of started my kids that way. But honestly, I don't really think that sports care about the kids as much these days, and especially the ones that are, like you alluded to, year-round. So my kids, I wanted to play a lot of different sports, and if obviously all of them overlap, then you can't make it to everything anymore. So when the sports really start to care about the kids again and go to soccer in the fall and hockey in the winter, then I think that might change again. But right now you can't make that commitment because you're not playing that sport.
And that's where I want to go next. And you talk. When did you play 3 sports all the way through high school? How did it work?
I stopped playing soccer fairly young, and I was baseball and hockey, and I continued all the way through my senior year at Westminster. I got drafted after my junior year of high school, and I remember my senior spring, I called the general manager and I said, you know, I want to play baseball, and is that okay? And you know, he said, absolutely not, for obvious reasons. And then he called back and he said, don't tell anyone, but you can go ahead and play. And you know, that made my year, because I love baseball as much as I did hockey, still today. And I think it's important to play all different sports and not have I think there's a term for it these days where you pinpoint a sport, or I don't even know what it's called, but I think you learn a lot about other sports by playing different sports.
I want to continue on that topic because it seems especially earlier and earlier kids are expected, junior high school, to play sports year-round, whether it's soccer or whatever it is. And I'm a big believer in playing different sports, and it helps your skills. You know, I kind of want to know where all of you stand on that issue.
I'll start with my answer here. I actually, you know, to be honest, probably got burnt out of ice hockey. I came here, you know, recruited as an ice hockey player, and that was the sport I played the most growing up, and just kind of had enough, and was lucky enough that, you know, I was pretty good at lacrosse and had a great opportunity there. But then, really, you know, I kind of got sick of lacrosse through college and beyond. You know, now I love coaching ice hockey and playing that, you know, and pick up leagues more so than lacrosse.
And golf.
And golf. I got about 11 years to be on the senior tour.
Rebecca.
I think, I mean, just hearing you talk about being burnt out, I think that's why I'm grateful. So, I mean, Westminster provides you with this great tradition of playing more than one sport. I mean, I'm going to say it, but I assume that you still can't play just one sport. And so I played 3 seasons. I did soccer, basketball, and track. And that's how I grew up. I mean, it was exactly that. I'm very lucky that Simsbury sports were very strong, but it was travel soccer in the fall and the spring, and it was travel basketball in the winter. Very little overlap, never an issue. And we also weren't really traveling all that far, and it wasn't until high school that I started playing sort of higher level sports, but I was I think I was just sort of told, I always knew that my first commitment was high school. So, you know, if I had a track meet on a Saturday, I'd go to my track meet on Saturday, and then my coach or my parents would drive me to my AAU basketball tournament, and I just told the coach ahead of time in the season, I'm gonna have to miss games, my first commitment is here. And it's harder to find coaches that say, that's okay, that we still want you. But now that I'm coaching and I'm on the other side of that, I tell kids, your first commitment is, I'm at Pomfret, is Pomfret, and then you need a coach that has to value the fact that you're at a school that, you know, has classes on Saturdays, and that's where you are. And it's much harder to find coaches who are willing to work with that. And we're seeing it now in sports. Kids are missing Saturdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes week-long tournaments, and it used to be much more, I saw it in hockey, now we're seeing it in soccer, we're seeing it in basketball, we're seeing it it's much more common across sports, and don't necessarily think that, I like to think that I turned out okay having just played in the seasons for most of my life.
Yeah, I think you know, playing multiple sports makes you a better athlete, whereas, you know, playing one specific sport, I think sort of, you know, pencils you into that one role. I think playing baseball made me a better hockey player, and playing hockey made me a better baseball player. Those are really the only 2 sports that I played growing up. And kind of like Tommy was saying, you know, I had that break from hockey when I needed it. You know, at the end of the winter when I was like, I can't stand to play another game of hockey, you know, it was right on to baseball. And, you know, as soon as the spring and the summer was over and I couldn't, you know, throw another baseball, it was time to pick up and start playing hockey again. And I think, you know, some of the problem with, like, you know, Little League baseball and youth baseball is that kids are starting to play on so many teams, and they're, you know, throwing 50 pitches in this game, and then their parents are driving them to the next game and they're throwing 50 pitches over here, and you know, and kids are starting to get worn down and kids get injured. And, you know, obviously it's not a good thing. But so I think playing multiple sports makes you a better overall athlete, and giving you that break is really important.
I think that multiple sports was the best thing that I have ever done, because just giving me the choice to do something. You know, I never had a choice to do something. It'd be school and then whatever, you know? And just playing 3 sports, each sport made me better for the next sport. You know, football made me better for wrestling. Wrestling, I lose a lot of weight, and then track season come, I gain it all back in muscle, and I'll be stronger for the shot put. And I think that just taught me as a professional that sport, like whatever sport you're into, whatever you're doing, is not just that season, it's year round. And if you want to compete with the best, they do it year round. And that's the only way you can get better at it.
Yeah, I was going to say that some of my experience mirrored Doug's in that by the time I got in my early 20s, I got a bit burnt out from the soccer, and actually Westy was the only place where I had some variety, where I could play basketball, I could try lacrosse, and I even did some track. But by the time I got to Division I sports, it was really eating, breathing, sleeping soccer. So I think what we're all talking about is sports specialization. At least that's what the terminology is in sports psychology. So when a child specializes in a specific sport, they follow that all the way up. And I actually think it can lead to a lot of burnout. So variety, as everybody's been saying, is key.
Tommy, you already addressed this a little bit, but the difference now, we'll move on, the difference between high school and college sports is big, and then the difference between college and professional sports. And if you could talk a little bit, not about the difference in the intensity level or the athlete, but the commitment that is required year-round, not just in season. People see what you do during the game, they don't see the other hours of the day. So what is it like when you move from here to college and then from college to the NHL?
Yeah, I think it first hits you when you get to college because, you graduate high school in May, and then, June 1st, there's a binder sent to you with, a 16-week, for at least hockey, it's a 16-week program, with pretty much what you're doing from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. every day, every morning. And that's before you even step foot on campus, and that's kind of the introductory glimpse into what it's like to be a Division I athlete. And I think, kind of reflecting back on what we already said, if you're already burnt out of your sport before you get to that point, it's going to be a struggle at college because the commitment only increases. And I was fortunate enough where I wasn't burnt out, and I kind of welcomed it was almost a treat where it's like, I can do all this hockey for, all these months, and I missed baseball, I missed the variety, but not being burnt out kind of enabled me to be more into it and not have to dread it come June and July when, your first game is 6 months away, but you're expected to complete these workouts and be ready physically. Because Division I hockey, or Division I sports, a lot like pro sports, it's demanding and they want something from you and you got to deliver it, and if you don't, then they're going to, look down the bench to the next guy. And, it's definitely a big commitment.
Brian, when did your season end this year?
Ended in December.
And how much time did you get off?
About a month.
And then when you start up, how many hours a day? What are your workouts like?
I mean, I usually take about 2 weeks off just to let my body kind of recover from, we start out here, but you have to work out all the time. I think I went about 3 weeks to a month my first year, and when I went back in February, the workout blocks are shorter, they're about 4 hours instead of all day, but I was still so behind. I was still so behind a lot of players who, a lot of guys, they stop for a week and then they fly somewhere warm and begin it all over again. And I used to be like, man, I don't have to do that. I'm young, I'm talented, I don't have to do that. You really fall behind guys that know how to do it and how to stay conditioned all year, because especially when things start really heating up in March, you got guys who just finished the Super Bowl, but they got to go right back into it because that's just how you become a better player. Everyone's doing it now, so you can't just be the average player, especially just being a professional. That's what you are, you're a professional. And the sport is your life now. You have to balance everything around the sport now.
Workout block. What do you mean by that?
Workout block. Basically, off-season training, they call it blocks, 4-hour blocks. You come in about 7 o'clock, you lift for 2 hours, and then you run for an hour, and then you meet for an hour. And then if you want to meet with your coaches after that after your day, 12:30. Well, it used to be longer. My first year, before they changed the CBA, we'd be in there until about 1 or 2 o'clock. But now you can't be on the premises more than 4 hours, or your team could get in trouble. But you really see the great guys, like, they don't leave the building. I learned not to leave the building. Like, I know some guys out there, they probably don't even know my name, but they don't like me. They see me every day, they know my name, but you have to become what you want to be, and that's what I learned.
It's interesting you mentioned how your life revolves around the sport, and that's what it is. It's what you eat is what you need to eat to do that. You're planning your day around when you have to get your workouts in. Have any of you, or if so, when did you get to the point where you said, I'm sick of my life revolving around my sport? Rebecca?
I think I miss it. I would be more than happy if I were sitting here right now at my age saying that my life is revolving around my sport. I love coaching, but I still miss playing. And not just a sport. When I say that, I miss doing any of the sports that I did. Or I just miss being a competitive athlete. But I don't know, I think I might have grown up in an unusual household where training for sports happened early, and I was lucky, and I think our lifestyle still revolves around being healthy and as competitive as we can be at our age. But I'm sure other people, I can't even fairly compare, my professional experience to most people sitting here. So,
Have you found an outlet for your competitiveness or your,
Yeah, I guess coaching is a good outlet. But I make sure, I need to still feel physically competitive. So I'll do that on my own as often as I can, as often as anyone has time for. I'm not even a parent. I can't imagine how parents find the time. But I don't think you ever lose that part of you.
any of you active athletes ever gotten to the point, you talk about being burnt out with lacrosse, where you needed to take a break, and if you got to that point, how did you handle it?
I'm the same. I have never hit that point. I've played 68 games this year, and tomorrow could be our last for the season, and I'm hoping that it's not, because I want to keep playing. Just because you love to compete, you love to go out there with your teammates, and it's a chance to do well, to perform, and I hope we win.
Do you have any trouble in the off season getting up and getting your workouts in? I mean, the games are one thing.
Yeah.
Or are you still like, I'm ready to go, whatever my workout is that they sent me?
Yeah, it's easy when you're in front of the lights and the people are watching. Getting up for a workout might be a little different, but if you love what you do and you want to keep being if you want to keep having it be the center of your life, which I know I do, and I think everyone up here can agree, you want it to last as long as possible, then you got to do that workout.
Kara, what do you think is the difference between the person who knows they have the workout and gets up and does it, and the one who says, I don't want to do that today, or the person who knows they have the schoolwork to do and does it, versus the one who knows they have to do it and doesn't do it?
So what is the difference between?
Yeah, what do you think is the difference between the person who does it and the one who doesn't, even though they both are supposed to be doing it?
Well, I guess I would say something about, oftentimes I was internally driven to do the workout, even if I was exhausted. I think sometimes being really competitive gets a bad rap. But when you're excelling in sport and you're wanting to get to the next level or keep your starting position, for me, I would force myself to do the workout even if I was exhausted, or even if I was, well, probably not burned out, but I just remember being internally driven to keep pushing myself.
Did that transfer in the classroom as well?
It did, yeah. So I used that kind of competitive spirit from athletics to push myself. When I was writing my dissertation, it was really hellish, but I had to kind of push myself to the next limit. And I think athletics certainly helped me have that foundation in order to be able to do that.
What about you, Dan?
I think that the big thing is the sort of the role models you had growing up, your parents, your youth coaches, your teammates at the time. I think all that can sort of snowball in the right or wrong direction. And as far as sort of the academic side, I was talking to Coach Jarvis at dinner. It's interesting to think about sports and what your shooting percentage would be, or your average, or compared to 300. You're going 3 for 10, you're doing a pretty good job. 5 for 10 in hoops is pretty good, but if you get 3 for 10 or 5 out of 10 on a quiz, you're not doing so hot. It's pretty easy to see why I enjoy sports a lot.
5 more minutes before we open up to questions, I think. So all of us were participants in team sports. Also track and field, individual, a little bit more of an individual sport. Do you think there's something different about an athlete that makes them participate in team sports versus an individual sport, or something that they need to have that make them excel in a team sport versus an individual sport?
So I guess my experience would be actually a little bit of both, as weird as it sounds. Once you get up to like professional baseball, it is actually an individual sport. Every man is playing for himself, which is kind of lousy to say, but it's true. I was hoping that the starting shortstop went 0 for 4, and I was hoping that I went 4 for 4. I was hoping that the guys in AA and the guys in AAA, God forbid, got hurt. But I mean, that's really what you're, in order for me to get to the next level, I need something not good to happen to the people that are ahead of me. So I think, obviously I played team sports growing up, but once I got into professional baseball, it was a really individual sport, and I didn't like it as much, to be honest. I really like that whole thing where, you're pushing for somebody else and they're pushing for you, and I just think that sort of builds relationships that I still have today. Like I still have relationships with guys I played college ball with and guys I played high school ball with. And that's not to say I don't have some relationships with the guys I played professionally, but a lot less. And I think that's the reason, is because, every time I went up to bat, I was hitting for the 20 guys that were sitting on the bench in college. And when I went to bat in AAA, it was so that I can make the trip up the road to Boston.
What about you, Ryan?
For me, I always looked at sports as a team, as a family. So I think when I started wrestling, at first it was individual, but I can remember there's a website called It's a forum for all Connecticut high school wrestling, and you check it whenever you have a match, because everyone has something to say on there. They all go and check it. And I can remember me seeing like, oh, I got a pen yesterday, like I should see something on pen win. And I read it was like Hartford Public sucks because almost everyone else lost. And I really hate the feeling of other people feeling bad. You know what I mean? I think family is everything. So I try to become a leader and try to help everyone out, because everyone has good characters. Everyone has the right to make a choice, and it's your choices that separate yourself from the other individuals. So if you make that choice to get up in the morning early before someone else, you make that choice to eat right, man, you're going to get what you want out of the pack. So I always looked at it as a team thing. Individuals never really, I mean, it really was, because at the end of the year, I'm on state, I was happy, but I was more happy at my team record, because that means we did it as a team. We were more powerful as other school as a whole, you know what I mean?
What were they posting by your name at the end of the season when you're all state?
Oh, man. I used to love looking at Penny when they had the top 10 poll, and as long as I was in top 5, I was happy. As long as our team was kind of somewhere up there, I was happy. My senior year, we finished really good as a team. We only had a couple guys that ended up at the tournament.
All right, time I want. Luke, go ahead, please.
I think the most special teams are the ones that, and I agree with you, Jeff, that as I got higher and higher levels and into professional levels, and I know professional lacrosse is very different from the sport you guys are playing. But it was more, it felt like, that guy's not really rooting for me. but the most special teams are the ones that can, be completely past that, and everyone knows their role and are very, very selfless.
I have to make one confession. So I played one season with Rebecca in the NWBL, and there may have been some games I never played. with people like Rebecca on the team. There may
Were you
have been a few
hoping I'd get
games
hurt?
where I not that you never got hurt, that you may have like tripped and fell.
So you could have at least hoped that Kara got in foul trouble.
Yeah.
I didn't have
There was one game I got put in. I got to travel with the team. We were in Kansas City, and we were just playing awful. And there were 7 minutes left, and the coach put me in. And I was like, I got a whole 7 minutes. There wasn't a single whistle until 1 minute left. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. That was
you couldn't get in?
No, there wasn't a whistle. I was like, call a timeout. So that was
I would have followed somebody.
That was
if
my
you had let me
chance.
know. We forget too when the difference in high school, college, and professional is that in high school and college you're with somebody, core group of people for 4 years or 3 years. You get to the pros and it's just different. People are at different stages of their lives. Some are going home to kids. Some are going out to party. It's just a totally different thing. But for the high school athletes here, the biggest, best piece of advice you could give them as they look to continue to play here and or continue to move on?
Yeah, it'd follow up exactly what we just talked about. And the closest teams you're going to be on are here in high school and also in college. Because everything that was said about professional sports, as great as it is, it's true. My best friends are from Westminster and from Boston College. And also, the best compliment I think you can get is to be a great teammate. My college coach taught me that. He said more important than any wrist shot or big hit or skill that you have, if your teammates say you're a great teammate, then you're making a difference on the team. So those two things, enjoying your relationships in high school and college and being a good teammate, are probably my two biggest ideas of advice.
Yeah.
I probably would just say enjoy the moment, enjoy playing in high school, embrace it. And if you end up going on to college, I think one thing I wish I had made myself take more snapshots of these kind of wonderful, awesome moments when I was playing with my team. Reb, you said something earlier like, oh, I miss it if I could be in it. And, I certainly have those moments. The other thing that I would say is just keep playing, keep competing, because sports can really open so many doors for you. They continue to open doors for me. And when you're on the field, you can transfer those skills to out in life. So just keep playing.
They pretty much said everything. Just the biggest advice, just goal setting, agenda. Have an agenda for no matter what you want in life, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever you want. Just start by seeing it first. Write down how you're going to get it, and then every day just tell yourself, am I doing what I need to do to get it? Because the human mind, the human body can do whatever you want to do. And as long as you practice, you work hard, you will get there. And I think I learned that through wrestling, through football, because I wasn't always the biggest guy. I was always the fastest, but I set a lot of goals. And my first goal was just become a starter lineup. After that, win, become 50%. After that, I found I was good, become All-State. And I think I just really learned that agenda setting choices really is going to carry you where you need to be. And just enjoy the moment, man. Enjoy the youth, because your best moments are now and in college. Just enjoy it. It's your friends.
You guys hit most of it. I mean, I know this is going to kind of sound lame, but make sure you work in some grace with your grit. I think growing up, and especially high school and college sports, I did a little bit too much grit and not enough grace. And I think that looking back, I probably could have been a little bit better at that. And I guess that would be my only advice. A lot of grace.
I would say for those of you that are passionate about sports, it's worth it. Playing college sports, if that's a dream of yours, it's absolutely worth pursuing. It shaped my college experience. It wouldn't have been the same. It wasn't my only experience, but it definitely shaped it. It has shaped who I am, and everyone's talked about who their best friends were, and it's from my teams, certainly growing up, and then through high school and through college. So if you have that drive, You know, when the alarm clock goes off at 7 in the summertime before work, or when it's a difference between going out with your friends or, you know, getting a lift in, it's worth it, because once you're there, it's a really special thing.
Having said, you know, 3 times that I think it's like a different sports at times, you know, now looking back and the elder statesman here, I would say, make them tear the jersey off of you. You know, it ends like that. And at 39, I can't go back to it. Make them tear the jersey off of you whenever you can, and play as long as you can.
Do you want to answer questions? I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that, but someone will help me.
It's a light.
Any questions, panelists? Maybe some light in the house?
Question over right on the right side here.
So I guess this goes for any of you. My primary sport is gymnastics, and my coach today was saying to me the other day how in this day and age it's becoming harder for him, and this goes for any sport, to develop successful athletes because of sort of the atmosphere nowadays where when anything hurts or anything's like any adversity, it's sort of shy away, and that's carried with sort of the general, sort of like everyone's winners nowadays. Do you think that affects like the competitive nature of sports?
Yes. I mean, I'll just be like pretty frank about it. I hate the everybody gets a trophy thing. You know, from my personal experience, I think it builds character coming in second place every once in a while, coming in third place every once in a while. You know, it sort of made me the person that I am today. And I think, you know, losing is healthy. You know, and I think it makes you more hungry to win. I don't know if that makes me a, you know, what you were saying, or you win or you hate to win, or you love to win or hate to lose. I guess that makes me a hate to lose type of person. And I think that fueled me to always want to win because I tasted defeat and I hated it.
I'll just add on because of my 6-year-old daughter. The other day she was upset about something and was crying, and I said, you have to understand that if you want to win all the time and you like winning, you have to practice, and then you'll be better than people, and then you'll win. Like, they need to understand, kids need to understand that one leads to the other. And yeah, everybody getting a trophy. I mean, come on. Right there.
Yeah, I think one of the themes here about sportsmanship and this idea of leaving it on the field and the aggression carrying forward. One of the things I think we're lucky here in the Founders League and other independent school sports, especially at the college level, is at the end of a game, the two teams shake hands. And oftentimes when you watch a game on television at the professional level, the footage cuts off and goes to commentary. You don't necessarily see if the teams go and shake hands. Certainly there are games where that happens, but I'd be interested just in your various sports, whether it's cross hockey, basketball, baseball. What happens at the end of that professional game? Certainly you see guys going out and hugging each other, but when you lose that sort of shaking hands at the end of the competition, even on the field, sort of talk about that once the camera shut off.
I think it's important to be able to, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, to the grace part. You know, it's really, really important. I tell all my teams, and I was told, I don't know at what point, I think in college, to take your glove off and shake their hand. That's actually my favorite moment in sports is, you know, what you're about to have tomorrow night. The handshake at the end of that.
Hopefully not.
Hockey season. Oh, they're going to shake hands.
Yeah, regardless.
Oh, regardless?
Yeah,
All right, good luck.
Yeah, no, I think you know, in the hockey series, you don't shake hands after each game. You shake hands at the end of the series, and I think it's a crucial part of the game. I think it should be done correctly, like you said. Your glove should be off, and you should look someone in the eye. And I think it comes down to respect, respecting your opponents, and that's a huge topic nowadays. You know, injury-wise, being able to respect your opponent and go at them, but also, you know, respecting them by not hurting them. There's a guy on the other team that I've been going at him for 4 games. He's number 36. I don't know him, and he's called me names. He's hit me. He's he's gone after me for 4 games, and I've done the same to him, and I can't wait to shake his hand tomorrow, look him in the eye, because I respect what he's doing for his team. I don't like him at all right now. It's important to, to leave it on the field. And I'm sure he's a great guy. He's got friends and he's got family and people like him. And, to look him in the eye and shake his hand and just respect what he's doing is important.
I just say for me, one of the most moving moments of the NCAA tournament, which finished not that long ago, was after Baylor lost, and everyone said Baylor was unstoppable, women's basketball. And, Brittany Griner could have had a different response, I think, and having watched that game and see how physical it was, and she could have said something negative afterwards, and to see her go through, and I'm sure they were a team that were going to win a national championship, and to lose before getting there, and to walk through the line, and the camera showed it. You could see her shake everyone's hand, and she said something to each and every one of them. And then her interview after the game was so incredibly positive. She personally was upset, but didn't let that play out. And I found that to be one of the most influential moments of the tournament.
In football, it's not really a formal handshake, but I think just as a professional athlete, you're an ambassador for all the young kids who are playing the same sport, same position that you are. You got to be tough, but you got to show some respect because that guy on the other side, he's doing the same thing you do. He put in the same workouts, and a lot of times in football, you don't hear a good job. I mean, you hear a good job from your stats, but just from someone else who's doing the same thing that you're doing here, hey, good job. I like that move, or he was tough today. I think it's just a uplifting feeling. And I mean, at times I got a word from guys who I didn't even think knew who I were, like guys like stars. And good job. I seen you out there hustling, and that made me just feel a lot better. You know what? The next day, when I got to go lift or get in the ice tub, I woke up that morning like, you know what? I got better, and I do have a career. Just from that little show of respect. So I think it's really important.
You've all made it really far in your careers, and I want to know how you knew the balance, being a kid and having fun, or when it was working hard.
I mean, I think when I was playing professional sports, I was still being a kid and having fun. I think when you lose I'm just being a kid and having fun, that's time to hang it up. And I know, Tommy and I were just talking over there, and I just said, he said, well, when did you finish and why did you finish? And I just said, when I hated going to the ballpark every day, that's when I knew that was the last year I wanted to play. So I think when you lose that feeling of I'm in Pawtucket, I'm playing in front of 10,000 fans, this is awesome. And I'm getting paid. I think as soon as you lose that feeling, that's when it's time to sort of give it up. That was when I knew I should give it up.
I think all the stuff you're doing in the off season, that you probably have your season here and then you have a commitment to teams off season, I think that it just has to, I think it's important that it comes from you and that it's not an external person, whether a parent or a coach or someone saying that you're doing it. That it's really important that that outside commitment, which takes away from your time from being a high school student, that has to come from you and that you want to actually do it.
And when you get to the college or the pros, you still have a chance to have a lot of fun outside of your sport.
Yeah.
You can work hard and you can play hard. There's time to do those things in both college and professional sports.
And you're still having fun on the road, when you're in hotels, when you're on the buses, when you're eating as a team. I mean, there's so many moments that surround you competing where you are able to kind of act like a kid and have fun.
And have fun while you're working. The two should happen at the same time, I think. So many times you hear, when you're out there, make sure you're having fun, and when you're out there, make sure you're working hard. But you can go to a practice and see a bunch of 18-year-old seniors that look like a bunch of kids out there having a blast, but they're still working hard. And whether you're chasing fly balls or just running around, being a kid playing a game, that's still what you're doing, but you can still be working hard while you're doing it.
A lot of that you guys talking about, when you guys do professional careers, there's a whole lot of things to do. I'm worried about the two athletes who are in sports now, who play a much larger team. You guys find it's more like a family atmosphere. I know in football, you guys have around 100 people on roster, and then for hockey, I know you guys are like 50 or 60. You guys see it. You guys have more like a family rock about the individual aspect?
I think it's, as a football team, you need to be a team, and everyone knows it, but you have to do your individual part first for the team to move forward. And I think that just coaching and the program, they have you around the people that are doing the same job you are. But then you all run together, so you all feel the pain together. And I think that's really important, because it's funny, like my first year of offense really sucked. And a bunch of defensive guys used to make a big deal about them running, but it's like, they don't got as many sprints as us. That's why they suck. And I think stuff like that really can come in between. So it's really individual, because at the end of the day, you have to do your job or you're not going to have a job. But when you do that job and the team clicks, there's no better feeling than that. And I think that when you win, that's the ultimate feeling, because you know you came together with a huge group of guys from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different everything from all corners of the country, and you all pull together to get this job done against the same type of group who do the same thing. So you still have your individual mindset, but at the end of the day, if you accomplish all your individual goals, it's helping the team towards the goal. You become a role player. I hear that a lot. I don't know how much you hear it in basketball or hockey, but I know in football, you become a role player, because everybody can't do everything in football. You gotta really just know your role and execute it.
Yeah, in my experience in professional sports, there isn't the family type environment as there is in college and in high school, and that's been said, and I think it's really true. Don't get me wrong, I'm on a team right now where everyone's got the same goal, and I got the back of the guy next to me, and the guy next to him, I'll stick up for him, and they'll stick up for me. And guys are out there playing for themselves and also for each other, but I think there's something else that makes it not as much a family environment. And when I think about it, I think of what you do after practice. Right now, I go back to my apartment, and the guy next to me, he goes back to his family, and the guy next to him, I don't even know what he does. And, and quite frankly, you worry about yourself a lot. I'm worrying about getting myself ready for tomorrow. Whereas in college, me and my 4 roommates, we go back to the room, and then we'd go to the lacrosse game, and then we'd go eat at the dining hall, and then we'd have class, so we'd go to class. And, so it's something different about pro sports. There's so many positives to it. I love it. I love playing, I'm playing hockey for a living. I'm so blessed to be able to do that. But there isn't the family type environment that I had in my college experience and my experience here at Westminster. I mean, Westminster is a huge family. So you're not going to find that in pro sports either.
One of my last games, I remember going off the end. Everyone's going everywhere after the game, and there's a little cooling of beers after the game in the locker room, and guys were taking off tonight. We literally just sat there, and you had 2-3 games left. I'm like, where are you guys going? Like, this is it. It doesn't get any better than this, hanging out in the locker room with the teammates. That's what it's all about.
There's time for one more question.
All by yourself.
In your college experience, when you mentioned supporting other athletes, did you find those who ran cross country, played squash or tennis, did you ever learn anything from them, their different kind of individual sport mentality, what they went through versus what you did as members of the team?
I know when I first got the Temple, they were more on a day school schedule. So most of the teams, they weren't in the same spot at the same time. We'd be in the summer, and then everyone had summer off because there weren't really much classes, and all the football players were in classes. But about 2 years later, when they changed everything, we started to see more athletes. We started to hang out with more basketball players, and that went hand in hand with us going to their games and then coming to our games. And I think you just learn about people, and you learn about their sport. You learn about how they come together to do the same thing that you guys do. And I don't think there's no difference between sports. Everyone needs to do activities to become teammates. We just have that camaraderie. So.
I think it's always just impressive to watch, you know, when you're on a squash court, it's just you, and you'll have your teammates, and it's still a team game because you want your team to beat the other team that you're playing, but in that moment, for however long that game takes, it's just you and your opponent on the floor. I've always had just a respect for that. It's, you know, there's no one to fall back on, or you can't make an excuse, so, well, you know, she didn't get my back on that, it's just you. So it is a different mentality, but I found it with track as well. My events were individual, but at the end of the day, it was still, I got my excitement out of cheering for the team and trying to get a team victory, but it's quite different.
People who run cross country still amaze me. My dad's been a cross country coach at Granby High School for 40 plus years. And when I go to the races at the end, like, I'm crying because I see how hard these guys and girls work. And like, for sports, to train, we have to run, but at least we get to play the games. Like, I watch these guys and they're killing themselves for that. And they finish and they've used every ounce of energy that they have in their entire body. They're completely spent at the end. And it's just, I love watching guys and girls run. I think it's just one of the more emotional, you really have to dig deep to be successful in cross country. You're out there alone.
Great. Another round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
We should share.
Bags, ladies.
56 years of sharing. I'm behind. Disabled.
Thank you again.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.